The rain hit my face like tiny accusations as I watched them lower my mother's casket into the ground. My father stood beside me, shoulders shaking, his hand gripping mine so tight it hurt. Everyone kept saying how devastated he was, how devoted he'd been during Mom's final days. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe him. I had no idea I was standing next to a stranger. My name is Rachel Morrison, I'm 34, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew my family. My father David was a successful business consultant. My mother Ellen was a devoted teacher, and their marriage was the kind that made people believe in forever. When Mom fell down the stairs and died from her injuries 2 days later, it felt like the ground had opened beneath me. The only mercy was that Dad had been traveling for work when it happened. At least he didn't have to see her lying there. Or so I thought. The funeral was exactly what Mom would have wanted. Simple, elegant, full of flowers she loved. I'd given the eulogy through tears, talking about her kindness, her strength, how she'd taught me to stand up for myself. Dad couldn't even speak. He just sat in the front pew, head in his hands, looking broken. As the service ended and people began to leave, I noticed her. A woman standing apart from the crowd, older, with Mom's same sharp eyes and determined jaw. Aunt Linda. My mother's sister. The one who'd been estranged from the family for 15 years over some argument no one would ever explain to me. She shouldn't have been there. Dad had made it clear she wasn't welcome. But there she stood, watching not the grave but my father. Her expression wasn't grief. It was something colder. Harder. I started toward her, but Dad's hand caught my elbow. Rachel, we need to talk about the estate paperwork. The lawyer's waiting at the house. Now. Dad, can't it wait? I just want to get it handled. Your mother would want things settled quickly. You know how she worried about details. His smile was gentle, but his grip on my arm wasn't. I pulled away gently. I'll be there in a minute. I just need a moment alone. He hesitated, then nodded. Don't be long. It's cold out here. I waited until he walked toward the parking lot, then headed for Aunt Linda. She hadn't moved. Up close, I could see the years had lined her face, but her eyes were as fierce as I remembered from childhood. Aunt Linda, I didn't think you'd come. Your mother asked me to. Her voice was rough, like she hadn't used it in a while. She called me 2 weeks before she died. My stomach tightened. She did? What? Linda glanced over my shoulder, checking that we were alone. Then she leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. Rachel, your father isn't who you think he is. Your mother knew. That's why she reached out to me before. She stopped, her jaw working. Before it was too late. I stepped back, confused and a little angry. What are you talking about? She pressed something cold and metal into my palm. A key. Storage unit 247, downtown. Your mother left something there for you. Go tonight. Alone. And Rachel, don't tell your father. Not until you know the truth. The truth about what? But she was already walking away, pulling her coat tight against the rain. I stood there, the key digging into my palm, my heart hammering. What the hell had that meant? At the house, 40 people filled the living room, eating casseroles and speaking in hushed tones about what a tragedy it was. Dad was holding court near the fireplace, accepting condolences with watery eyes. Our lawyer, Mr. Henderson, sat at the dining table with folders spread out. Rachel, there you are. Dad waved me over. Mr. Henderson needs you to sign some documents. Just formalities, really. Transfer of accounts, property deed updates. With your mother's passing, everything needs to be moved into joint names. I sat down, but something felt off. Joint names? You mean yours and mine? Well, technically mine with you as beneficiary. Standard estate planning. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your mother and I always kept things simple. Mr. Henderson slid papers across the table. My mother's death certificate. Transfer forms. A waiver of probate. I picked up the first document and started reading. You don't need to read every word, sweetheart, Dad said, his hand on my shoulder. It's all standard. I just need your signature to keep things moving smoothly. But I kept reading. Something about the language bothered me. These documents didn't just transfer Mom's accounts. They surrendered any claim I might have to her separate property. Everything would go directly to Dad, with me listed as a secondary beneficiary only after his death. Dad, this says I'm giving up my rights to Mom's estate. That's not how it works, honey. This is just to avoid probate complications. Trust me, your mother and I discussed this years ago. She wanted me to handle everything. Then why didn't she sign these when she was alive? His expression flickered. Just for a second. She was going to. We just never got around to it. But she told me what she wanted, and I'm making sure it happens. I thought about Aunt Linda's face at the cemetery. The key in my pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. I need to think about this. Can we do this tomorrow? Dad's smile tightened. Rachel, the lawyer is here now. Let's just get it done. Tomorrow, I said, standing up. I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson. I'm not in the right headspace. I walked out before Dad could argue, grabbed my purse and left. In my car, I sat with the key in my hand, staring at the numbers etched into the metal. 247. I should have gone home. Should have grieved like a normal daughter. Instead, I drove downtown to the storage facility. The place was nearly empty at 7 p.m., just a few cars in the lot and harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I found Unit 247 in the back corner. The key turned smoothly, and the door rolled up with a metallic screech. Inside was a single cardboard box. My hands shook as I opened it. On top was a letter, my name written in Mom's handwriting. Underneath were photo albums, bank statements, a leather-bound journal, and a USB drive. I opened the letter first. Rachel, if you're reading this, I'm probably dead, and your father is probably trying to erase me. Everything you're about to discover is true. I have proof. I know this will hurt. I know you'll want to defend him. But please, baby girl, trust me one last time. Your father has been living a double life for 18 years. He has another family, another wife, 2 other children. And I truly believe, that if I don't survive confronting him with this truth, it won't be an accident. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this. But at least now you'll know. At least now, you can protect yourself. The journal has everything. Read it. Then decide what to do. Love always, Mom. The letter slipped from my fingers. Another family. 18 years. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But I opened the journal anyway. The first entry was dated 2 years ago. I found a phone today. David's phone. The one he thought he'd hidden. There were texts. Pet names. Someone called Sarah. When I confronted him, he said it was a client. But clients don't send texts saying, I miss falling asleep next to you. I flipped through pages. Months of entries. Mom tracking Dad's lies. Photographs she'd taken of him with another woman, brunette, pretty, younger than Mom. Photos of Dad with 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, outside a suburban house I'd never seen. March 15th. I hired a private investigator. His name is Marcus. He confirmed what I suspected. David has been living with Sarah Campbell and their children, Kyle, 16, and Emma, 14, in Riverside for the past 18 years. He tells them he travels for work. He tells us he travels for work. We've both been his cover story. My mother's handwriting got messier as the entries progressed. Anger. Heartbreak. Then determination. June 3rd. I've decided to divorce him. I went to see a lawyer today. She says with the evidence Marcus gathered, I can get everything. David will be left with nothing but his lies. I haven't told him yet. I want all the documents filed first. I want to make sure Rachel is protected. June 10th. David found out. I don't know how, but he knows about the lawyer. He came home furious, demanding to know what I thought I was doing. When I told him I had proof of everything, the second family, the embezzlement from his business to support them, he got quiet. The kind of quiet that scares me. He said, Ellen, you don't want to do this. You don't know what you're risking. It sounded like a threat. June 15th. I called Linda today. After 15 years of not speaking, I swallowed my pride and called my sister. She was right about David all those years ago. She told me he was hiding something, and I chose him over her. I was such a fool. But she forgave me. She helped me rent this storage unit. If anything happens to me, she'll make sure Rachel gets the key. I'm leaving everything here. Every piece of evidence, every document. Because David looked at me this morning. And I saw something in his eyes I've never seen before. I saw calculation. The final entry was dated the day before she died. June 18th. David knows I filed for divorce. The papers were served this morning. He tried to talk me out of it, offering counseling, promising to end things with Sarah. But I'm done. I told him I'd already updated my will, leaving everything directly to Rachel. He can't touch it. The lawyer has a copy. So does Linda. Rachel will be safe. But I'm not sure I will be. If you're reading this, baby, and I'm gone, please know I tried. I tried to protect you. Don't let him win. June 19th. The day she fell down the stairs. The day Dad said he was out of town. I flipped open the photo album with shaking hands. Inside were pictures I'd never seen. Mom and Aunt Linda as kids. Mom's wedding photos. But some were missing, torn out, like someone had tried to erase them. And then, tucked in the back, a photograph that made my blood freeze. Dad. At our house. Time-stamped June 19th, 7:43 p.m. Standing on our front porch. The day Mom died. The day he swore he was 300 miles away on business. Mom hadn't fallen accidentally. And Dad had been there when it happened. I don't remember driving home. I remember walking into my apartment, locking the door, and collapsing on the floor with the journal clutched to my chest. My mother had been murdered. And my father, the man who'd held my hand at her funeral, who'd cried on my shoulder, who was trying to get me to sign away my inheritance, had killed her. I called the only person I could think of. Aunt Linda? It's Rachel. I went to the storage unit. There was a long pause. Then, you know. I know. My voice broke. Mom wrote everything down. The second family. The threats. The photo of him at the house that night. Linda, he killed her. I know, baby. I've known since the day she called me terrified. I've been waiting for you to find the truth. Why didn't you go to the police? With what? A sister's suspicion? They ruled it an accident. David was supposedly out of town. Without proof, without witnesses. I'd just be the estranged, bitter sister making accusations. But now you know. Now you have the evidence. What are you going to do? I don't know. I don't. I took a breath, forcing myself to think through the panic. I need to be smart about this. If I go to the police now, he'll know I found Mom's evidence. He might run. Or worse. Then what? I need more proof. I need to find this other family. I need to talk to them. See if they know anything that could help convict him. Rachel, that's dangerous. If David finds out. He already killed Mom. I'm not going to let him get away with it. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Riverside. The address from Mom's journal led me to a tidy suburban neighborhood, the kind with manicured lawns and minivans and driveways. The house was blue with white trim, a basketball hoop over the garage. Through the front window, I could see movement. I sat in my car across the street, trying to figure out what to say. How do you tell someone their entire life is a lie? The front door opened. A teenage boy came out, backpack slung over his shoulder, earbuds in. Behind him, a girl who looked about 14. And behind them both, her. Sarah Campbell. The woman from the photos. She called out something to the kids, smiling, waving as they headed toward the bus stop. Then she went back inside. I waited until the kids were gone, then got out of my car and walked to the front door. My hand shook as I rang the bell. Sarah answered, still in her bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. Can I help you? Are you Sarah Campbell? Yes. She looked confused but not alarmed. Yet. My name is Rachel Morrison. I think we need to talk about David. Her face went pale. David Morrison. My father. Your. I couldn't say the word. The man you've been living with for 18 years. She started to close the door. I put my hand against it. Please. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here because my mother died 3 weeks ago. And I think David killed her. The door stopped moving. Sarah stared at me, her knuckles white on the doorframe. Your mother? David said. He told me his first wife died years ago, before we met. He lied. She died last month, after she found out about you and filed for divorce. Please, can I come in? I have proof of everything. She let me in. We sat at her kitchen table, the same kind of cozy family kitchen I'd grown up with, and I showed her everything. The journal, the photos, the bank statements showing Dad had been embezzling from his business to support 2 households. Sarah's face crumbled as she read. He told me he was a widower, she whispered. When we met, he said his wife had died in a car accident and his daughter, you, I guess, had refused to speak to him after. That you blamed him for not being there when it happened. He said you were estranged. I didn't even know you existed until yesterday. Oh my God. She put her head in her hands. My whole life is a lie. My marriage. My children. Everything. Sarah, I need to ask you something. The night of June 19th, was David here? She looked up, eyes red. June 19th? Let me check. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through a calendar. Yes. He came home from his business trip around 8 p.m. Said the meetings ended early. Why? Because that's the night my mother died. And there's a photo of him at our house at 7:43 p.m. Sarah's face went white. That's only 40 minutes before. Before he got here. Yes. You think she couldn't finish. I think he pushed my mother down the stairs. I think he killed her for her life insurance, and to avoid losing everything in divorce. And I think he's been playing us both this entire time. We sat in silence. Then Sarah said, I need to tell the kids. Oh God, Kyle and Emma. How do I tell them their father is The front door opened. We both jumped. A man's voice called out, Sarah? I'm home early. Thought we could grab lunch. David Morrison walked into the kitchen. He saw me. Saw Sarah's tear-stained face. Saw the journal open on the table. And his expression went from surprise to something I'd never seen before. Cold. Calculating. Dangerous. Rachel, he said slowly. What are you doing here? Rachel, Dad said again, his voice steady despite the shock in his eyes. What are you doing in Sarah's house? I stood up, the journal clutched in my hand. What am I doing? What are you doing, Dad? Or should I ask which version of you is standing here right now? The grieving widower or the devoted husband? His jaw tightened. He looked at Sarah, then back at me. Sarah, could you give us a minute? No, Sarah said, standing beside me. I want to hear this. I want to hear you explain how your wife who died years ago actually died last month. I want to hear you explain these bank statements showing you've been stealing from your business to pay for 2 families. I want to hear you explain this. She held up Mom's journal, her hand shaking. Dad's expression shifted, that charming smile sliding into place. Ladies, I can see you're upset. But you're misunderstanding. Rachel, your mother and I were having problems, yes. We were separated. Sarah knew about her. Ellen knew about Sarah. It was complicated, but it was all out in the open. That's a lie, I said. Mom's journal proves it. She only found out about Sarah 2 years ago. And she never knew about Kyle and Emma until she hired the investigator. Rachel, your mother was, he paused, choosing his words carefully. She was struggling. Emotionally. The things she wrote in that journal, they weren't always based in reality. Don't you dare. My voice came out sharp as glass. Don't you dare make her sound crazy when you're the one who's been lying for 18 years. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. David, tell me the truth. When we met, were you married? Sarah, baby. Were you married? He looked between us, calculating. I could see him weighing his options, trying to figure out which lie would work. Finally, he sighed and sat down at the kitchen table like this was just another difficult business meeting. Yes, he said. I was married. Ellen and I had a complicated relationship. We stayed together for Rachel, but we weren't happy. When I met you, Sarah, I fell in love. Real love. I wanted to divorce Ellen, but she wouldn't agree. She threatened to take everything, including my relationship with Rachel. So I made a choice. I kept both lives separate. For 18 years, Sarah said flatly. I know how it sounds. But I love you. I love our children. Everything I did was to protect this family. By lying to us every single day? Sarah's voice broke. By making me believe I was your whole world when I was just, what? Your side piece. That's not fair. Fair. I cut in. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about June 19th. Where were you that night, Dad? His eyes shifted to me, guarded. I was on a business trip. I already told the police that. No, you weren't. Because Mom left something you didn't know about. I pulled out my phone, showing him the photograph. Him on our front porch, timestamp 7:43 p.m. Ring any bells? The color drained from his face. Where did you get that? Mom had a security camera installed. One you didn't know about. She documented everything. Every threat you made. Every time you told her she was risking everything if she divorced you. And she captured you arriving at the house the night she died. That doesn't prove anything. I stopped by to try to talk to her. At 7:43. She was pronounced dead at 8:15. 32 minutes later. And then you showed up here. I looked at Sarah. At 8 p.m., acting like you'd been traveling all day. Sarah stood up, backing away from the table. You killed her. Oh my God, you killed your wife. No. Sarah, no. She fell. It was an accident. I was there, yes, but I didn't. You're lying, I said. You've been lying about everything. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. He stood up fast, the chair scraping. For a second, I saw real fear in his eyes. Then he grabbed his keys from the counter. I need to leave. This is insane. You're both being hysterical. You're not going anywhere. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. He moved toward me. An instinct made me step back. Sarah grabbed a knife from the counter. Don't, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. Don't you dare touch her. Dad froze. Looked at both of us. Then he turned and walked out. We heard his car start, tires squealing as he peeled out of the driveway. I called 911 with shaking hands. I need to report a suspected murder. And the suspect just fled the scene. The next hours were a blur. Police arrived. I showed them everything. The journal, the photos, the time-stamped security footage, the bank records. Sarah corroborated that Dad had shown up that night at 8 p.m., supposedly from a business trip. Detective Martinez, the lead investigator, took copies of everything. Ms. Morrison, we're going to need to bring your father in for questioning. Do you know where he might go? He has an office downtown. And he might try to access his storage units. He kept files there. I paused. But there's something else. My mother updated her will before she died. She left everything to me. Dad's been trying to get me to sign documents that would transfer it all to him. Do you still have those documents? At my apartment. Mr. Henderson, the lawyer, has copies too. We'll need to talk to him. This might be bigger than just your mother's death. If there's financial fraud involved. There is, Sarah said quietly. She'd been sitting silent, still processing. David's been taking money from his business. Large amounts. I have bank statements showing deposits that don't match what he told me he earned. Detective Martinez nodded grimly. We'll need all of that. Ladies, I'm going to be honest with you. Building a murder case is difficult. But with what you've shown me, combined with the financial evidence, we have enough to arrest him. They found Dad 6 hours later trying to board a flight to Mexico. He'd cleaned out 3 bank accounts and had $50,000 in cash in his briefcase. When they searched his office, they found forged documents, fake identities, and evidence of another woman, a third victim we hadn't known about. Her name was Jennifer. Dad had been engaged to her for 5 years, visiting her 1 weekend a month under the guise of consulting work. She had no idea about Sarah or my mother. When detectives contacted her, she confirmed Dad had asked her to wire him money multiple times, claiming business emergencies. It turned out my father wasn't just a bigamist. He was a con artist. And my mother had figured it out. The trial took 9 months. During that time, Sarah and I became unlikely allies. Her children, Kyle and Emma, were devastated, but they were also resilient. They'd believed their father was a hero. Learning he was a fraud shattered them. But they were young enough to rebuild. Sarah filed for divorce. So did Jennifer. The house Sarah lived in? Dad had bought it with money embezzled from his own business. His partners filed charges. By the time the prosecutors were done, Dad faced charges for murder, fraud, embezzlement, bigamy, and identity theft. The trial for Mom's death was the hardest. I sat in that courtroom every single day, listening to evidence. The medical examiner testified that Mom's injuries were consistent with being pushed, not a simple fall. The security footage showed Dad entering the house at 7:43 and leaving at 8:02, 19 minutes. Plenty of time to stage an accident. His defense lawyer tried to paint Mom as mentally unstable, pointing to her journal entries as proof of paranoia. But then the prosecution played something we'd found on the USB drive Mom left. A video, recorded 3 days before her death. On screen, my mother sat at our kitchen table, looking directly at the camera. My name is Ellen Morrison. If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. And my husband, David Morrison, is probably claiming it was an accident. It wasn't. He's been threatening me since I filed for divorce. He's been stealing money, lying to multiple women, and living a double life. I have proof of everything. But I'm making this video because I'm genuinely afraid he might kill me before I can get to court. If something happens to me, please investigate. Please don't let him get away with it. And Rachel, baby, if you're seeing this, I love you. I'm so sorry I didn't leave him sooner. I'm so sorry you have to learn the truth this way. But please be strong. Be stronger than I was. Don't let him win. The courtroom was silent when the video ended. I was crying. Sarah was crying. Even the jury looked shaken. Dad's lawyer tried to object, claiming the video was hearsay. But the judge allowed it as a dying declaration. A legal exception for statements made by someone who believes death is imminent. It took the jury 4 hours to find him guilty. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of fraud. Guilty on 14 counts total. When the verdict was read, Dad finally looked at me. And I saw nothing in his eyes. No remorse. No love. Just cold calculation, still trying to figure out where his con had failed. The judge sentenced him to 25 years to life. He'd be 73 when he was eligible for parole. If he lived that long. After the sentencing, Aunt Linda found me outside the courthouse. She'd been there every day, sitting in the gallery, making sure I wasn't alone. Your mother would be proud of you, she said, pulling me into a hug. I should have seen it sooner. All those years, I thought we were the perfect family. We all did, honey. That's what men like David do. They're so good at the lies that even the people closest to them can't see the truth until it's too late. Why did you and Mom fight all those years ago? Linda smiled sadly. I told her I thought David was hiding something. I'd seen him once with another woman, years and years ago. When I mentioned it, Ellen got defensive. Said I was jealous of her happiness. We both said things we regretted. By the time we'd both cooled down, too much time had passed. Pride kept us apart. Until she called me, terrified, 2 weeks before she died. I'll regret that lost time for the rest of my life. But you helped her. You gave me the key. You made sure I found the truth. It's what sisters do. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs everything. Sarah appeared then, Kyle and Emma with her. The kids had been in counseling, working through the betrayal. They were doing better. Not great, but better. Rachel, Sarah said. I wanted to thank you. For finding us. For telling us the truth. It was hard, but we needed to know. I'm sorry it destroyed your family. You didn't destroy anything. He did. And now we get to rebuild. Together. She glanced at Kyle and Emma. We've talked about it. If you're willing, we'd like to stay in touch. The kids want to know their sister. Their sister. Half-siblings I'd never known existed. Family born from lies but trying to become something real. I'd like that, I said. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood at Mom's grave with fresh flowers. The headstone was simple, just her name and the dates. But I'd had an addition carved underneath. She knew the truth. She fought for justice. She won. Hey, Mom, I said, kneeling on the grass. I did what you asked. I found the truth. I didn't let him win. My voice broke. I wish you were here. I wish you'd gotten to see it. See him finally face consequences. See Sarah and the kids and me trying to figure out how to be a family. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. For just a second, I could have sworn I felt a hand on my shoulder. Mom's hand, gentle and reassuring. The way she used to comfort me when I was little. I love you, I whispered. And I'm sorry I didn't believe Linda sooner. I'm sorry I didn't see what you were going through. But I promise, I'll keep telling your story. I'll make sure other people know the signs. I'll make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to someone else. I stood up, wiping my eyes. Aunt Linda was waiting by the car, giving me space. I walked toward her, and she pulled me close. You okay? I will be. Eventually. That's all anyone can ask. We drove back to her house, the place I'd been staying since the trial ended. My apartment had too many memories of Dad, too many ghosts. Linda had offered me her spare room, and I'd accepted. We'd been healing together, two women who'd both loved and lost Ellen Morrison. That night, Linda made tea and we sat on her porch watching the sunset. What are you going to do now? She asked. I've been thinking about that. I want to go back to school. Get a degree in criminal justice. Maybe work with victims of domestic violence. People like Mom who see the danger, but don't know how to escape. She'd love that. And I want to write a book. Tell Mom's story. Tell Sarah's story. Tell Jennifer's story. All the women Dad hurt. Maybe it'll help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. You're stronger than you know, Rachel. I learned from the best. Two strong women who never gave up, even when it cost them everything. Linda smiled and squeezed my hand. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. My father had tried to erase my mother. He'd tried to bury her truth along with her body. But truth has a way of rising to the surface. And justice, though it took time, had finally been served. Mom was gone. But her voice, her fierce, determined voice, lived on. In me. In Sarah and her kids. In Aunt Linda. In everyone who'd fought to make sure she hadn't died in vain. And every time someone asks me about my family, I tell them the truth. All of it. The good dad I thought I knew. The monster he actually was. And the incredible mother who'd loved me enough to plan for a future she'd never see. That's the legacy Ellen Morrison left behind. Not the perfect marriage everyone thought she had. But the courage to face ugly truths, document them, and trust that eventually, the people who loved her would have the strength to finish what she started. If you're watching this and you recognize pieces of my story in your own life, if someone you love seems too perfect, if financial details don't add up, if your gut tells you something's wrong even when you can't prove it, please trust that instinct. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Don't keep secrets that could protect a predator. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think or cry or get angry at the injustice, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Drop a comment below sharing your own experiences with family secrets or betrayal. Your story might save someone else. Subscribe to this channel for more true stories of survival, justice, and the courage it takes to face uncomfortable truths. Because these stories matter. My mother's story matters. And maybe, just maybe, sharing them will prevent another family from going through what we did. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And if you're fighting your own battle against someone who thinks they can get away with lies, don't give up. The truth always comes out. Always. This is Rachel Morrison signing off. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power of a mother's love.